The United Nations Children's Fund reported that 2024 has been one of the worst years for children in recent history. In South Korea, at least 177 people lost their lives on Sunday when an airliner skidded off the runway and crashed at Muan International Airport. And in Venezuela, authorities inaugurated the Special Forces Training Complex, Commander Eliezer Otaiza. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We'll begin with the news. "14 months into the conflict in the Gaza Strip, the death toll has risen to 45,484, including more than 50 Palestinians killed in the last 24 hours. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, 52 people died after falling victim to the most recent Israeli attacks, which caused the disappearance of 11,000 Palestinians who remain under rubble. One of the assaults by the Israeli army was carried out against the Kamal Adwan hospital in Beit Lahaya, where armed men surrounded and forced the evacuation of approximately 400 people and then set fire to the building. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation condemned the aggression, calling the sieges clear violations of international humanitarian law. And this Sunday, a fifth Palestinian baby froze to death due to the extreme cold affecting Gaza amid the ongoing Israeli genocide. The death was registered in the locality of Deir al-Bala, where dozens of displaced families live in tents and in inhuman conditions due to Zionist troops' aggression. Authorities reported that the baby was barely 1 month old and detailed that the health condition of his twin brother was worsened by the low temperatures. This is the fifth newborn to die in less than a week due to freezing because of the lack of supplies due to the blockade of humanitarian aid by the Tel Aviv regime. The Palestinian government criticized the failure of the UN Security Council to stop the Israeli aggressions against the Gaza Strip. The Foreign Ministry regretted the inability of the security body to assume its responsibilities as mediator in the conflict, while Israeli forces take advantage of the situation to advance with their expansionist and extermination plans. The Foreign Ministry also condemned the bombing of hospitals and homes, which forced thousands of civilians to leave the territory. In this sense, the government warned that the crisis in Gaza leads to the loss of credibility in international institutions. And in Israel, crowds took part in a large demonstration in the streets of Tel Aviv to denounce the failure of Benjamin Netanyahu's government to secure the release of Hamas prisoners. During the protest, they demanded that a prisoner exchange agreement be offered with the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement. Opposition groups also accused Netanyahu of obstructing the ceasefire agreement in order to maintain his position in the face of threats of overthrow by the security and finance ministries. Some of the families of the Israeli detainees sent a message to the newly elected U.S. President Donald Trump, urging him to pressure the Israeli Prime Minister to accept an agreement with Hamas.
And we want President-elect Trump, to know that the vast majority of Israelis want an end to the war and bringing back the hostages in a comprehensive release deal. This is the vast majority, every pause. But he keeps, portraying the picture otherwise. And this is why we want to warn President Trump that Netanyahu is trying to deceive him.
Today, as we light the fourth candle of Hanukkah, our loved ones mark 449 days in captivity in the hell that is in Gaza. Negotiations for their release are at a critical point. It is possible to secure a comprehensive deal. Yet, Netanyahu, for his own criminal motives, refuses to end the war, which is a requirement for the release deal to happen.
In other news, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says that 2024 has been one of the worst years for children in recent history. According to United Nations data, armed conflicts like the ones in Palestine, Lebanon, and Sudan have meant malnutrition, forced displacements, and psychological trauma for the children in those countries. According to the agency's report, over 473 million children live in conflict areas, and 49% of the people displaced by conflict happen to be children. UN data indicates that in the first 9 months of this year, more children were killed than in 2023. In Chad, the French army has vacated the military base of Faya after the military agreement between Paris and N'Djamena was cancelled. According to official reports, the French army left Faya by land, heading for N'Djamena, 780 kilometers southwest of the country. The French Army Staff General said that the handover of the base takes place according to the schedule established in agreement with the Chad Armed Forces. The Chadian Ministry of Defense said military vehicles stationed at the French bases of Faya, Largo, Abéché, and N'Djamena were to be transported to France via the port of Douala in Cameroon, with January set as the deadline. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Georgia, Mikhail Kavelashvili was sworn in on Sunday as president after being elected by a parliamentary majority on December 14, 2024. The swearing-in ceremony took place in the Georgian parliament, attended by deputies, religious leaders, and the heads of the Constitutional and Supreme Courts. Mikhail Kavelashvili became the first president of the country to be elected not by popular vote but by electoral college, a voting in which opposition parties did not participate, for they say the procedure was flawed. Prior to Kavelashvili's inauguration, former President Salom Zurabishvili left the presidential residence despite having threatened to remain in power. In North Korea, the authorities announced the implementation of a tougher strategy against the United States following its growing military cooperation with South Korea and Japan. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has set new tasks to cope with increasing military provocations by Washington and its vassals' forces against the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Officials said they have been banking on accelerated progress in defense science and technology to firmly defend the country's inviolable sovereign rights. In late November, Kim blamed the U.S. for being the ringleader of the disruptors of peace and stability on the Korean peninsula, so he set military buildup as one of his irreversible policies. Meanwhile, in South Korea, a commercial airliner burst into flames Sunday morning after skidding off an airport runway and slamming into a concrete barrier when its front undercarriage failed to deploy during landing, killing at least 179 people. In what is considered one of the country's worst air disasters, the National Fire Agency said rescuers rushed to get people off the Jeju airjet carrying 181 passengers at the airport in Incheon City, about 290 kilometers south of Seoul. The Transportation Ministry said the plane was a 15-year-old Boeing 737-800 returning from Thailand. Furthermore, rescuers pulled out 2 crew members, and local health officials say they were conscious. In the United States, at least 1 person died and 4 others were injured after 5 tornadoes hit the state of Texas. Authorities also reported structural damage to homes and other buildings as a consequence of these weather events. The National Meteorological Service confirmed the likelihood of further tornadoes, warning that the storm could intensify during the afternoon and midnight hours of Sunday. And in Brazil, the authorities have issued a contamination warning for all rivers in the country due to the concentration of pesticides found in such waters. On December 22nd, the collapse of a river bridge between the states of Maranhão and Tocantins caused the fall of 2 trucks carrying chemical products, including herbicides and sulfuric acid, which led to the contamination of the water. After conducting a study to check the quality of river waters, they found significant amounts of highly toxic chemical herbicide in rivers nationwide, a compound that had been used by the United States during the war in Vietnam. The authorities are alerting the population about the risks of coming into contact with river water throughout the country and to refrain from doing so. And in Peru, 91 ports had to close due to unusual rough seas along the coastline from the southern region of Ilo to the coastal border of Ecuador. According to the Emergency Operations Center, the unusual waves caused by strong winds have caused damages and prompted emergency situations in the northern regions of Tumbes and Piura, where an undetermined number of small fishing boats have sustained some damage. In the El Nudo Cove, in the region of Piura, about 100 artisanal fishermen are reportedly stranded, and their families are asking the authorities to send them water and food since they have run out of provisions. The Navy's Hydrography and Navigation Department has warned that the abnormal swell will persist until January 1st. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. December 30th marks 20 years of the fire at the former República de Cromañón nightclub in the city of Buenos Aires, where 194 young people died and more than 1,400 were injured. Different organizations of survivors and relatives of the victims will carry out different cultural and social activities during the weekend to continue the demand for memory and justice. The tragic fire started when a fan lit a flare during a performance by the national rock band Callejeros and reached the flammable material on the roof, thus spreading throughout the venue, trapping and suffocating fans inside, whereas the emergency exit was closed. And a federal judge in Argentina ordered the Minister of Justice Mariano Cuneo Libarona to stop the dismantling of the Undersecretariat for Protection Against Gender Violence. The order thus granted a precautionary measure requested by civil organizations to avoid the emptying of the institutions that work in defense of children, women, and diversities in situations of violence. On the other hand, the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child also expressed its concern about the institutional and political changes that are taking place in Argentina and the impact they may have on the protection of children. In Venezuela, the Special Forces Training Complex Commander Eliezer Otaiza was inaugurated this Sunday. The ceremony was headed by Politics, Citizen Security and Peace Sector Vice President Diosdado Cabello, who was accompanied by chiefs and members of the Venezuelan State Police. At the inauguration, Cabello said the purpose of this center is to train a specialized force made up of components from all security forces to protect peace of the people. The Interior and Justice Minister stressed the importance of Commander Eliezer Otaiza for the Bolivarian Revolution and for Commander Hugo Chavez. Cabello said this project should not only serve for special forces of the National Police, but for the whole country.
A project that should not only provide special training to the police, but to all other forces in the country, including the popular units for peace, and folks from the communities may also come here to get special training. This place has the advantage of being by the sea and next to the mountain. This is part of the people's power. All this has to do with implementing the fundamental strategy that we are carrying out, which is to fuse popular forces, the military and the police.
The Venezuelan Attorney General's office responded this Sunday to Argentine Foreign Minister Gerardo Berthein in the framework of the investigation against fellow Argentine Nahuel Gallo, arrested in Venezuela for being involved in conspiring against the country. Through a statement, Attorney General Tarek William Saab published that a man burned in a golden cradle and representative in foreign affairs of a government that is a laughing stock worldwide for its submission to the US, and Israel for its diplomatic incoherence, its cheap boasting, its psychotic pretensions beyond all reality, pretends to give me lessons on justice and human rights, causes me compassion and pity. The Attorney General argues that the wartime arrival at the foreign ministry could not have had a worse message, since its predecessor was fired for voting together with 186 countries of the world, including all of Latin America, against the criminal blockade against Cuba. His president went into a rage because she did not vote alongside her Israeli and U.S. bosses. Derek Williams Saab stated, "In Venezuela we are fighting at the risk of our lives for the defense of our sovereignty and against the cruelest imperial enemy in history that seeks to bathe our land of grace in blood." The text concludes, "History will put everyone in their place, but you and your henchmen have already entered through the back door into the garbage dump of the underworld." And the Serbian-Cuban Association in Belgrade reaffirmed its support for Cuba's socialist project, as communicated on Saturday by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Caribbean nation. The association expressed its rejection of the U.S. economic blockade and its addition to the list of countries promoting terrorism. The association's leader, Sveto Dobrijevic, stressed that the most important activity of the year was to collect signatures of engineers, professors, and artists in connection with the global campaign condemning the categorization of Cuba as a terrorist nation. Cuban Ambassador Ernesto Rodriguez welcomed the association's statement in support of the March of the People on December 20th. In Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum celebrated the country's progress in areas such as the reduction of inequality and poverty and the records in employment and foreign direct investment. At the inauguration of the third and last stretch of the Jala-Puerto Vallarta highway in the western state of Nayarit, the Mexican president highlighted the approval this year of 16 constitutional reforms to return the social sense to the Constitution by 2025. Sheinbaum also highlighted the recognition of indigenous and Afro-Mexican peoples by law and the integration of all social programs to the Constitution. At the event, the president assured that her government is working on several projects for the coming year in favor of the welfare of the Mexican people, preserving the principles and causes of the country. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.